We have Jamie Case. Jamie is the former executive director of Gateway Pet Guardians. Gateway Pet Guardians work is concentrated in the community of East St. Louis, Illinois, where almost half of the residents live below the poverty line. 2012, Gateway began transferring in animals from the county municipal shelters euthanasia list. Since that time, Jamie has remained dedicated to reducing the number of animals euthanized each year in St. Clair County. She pushed for integration of Illinois organizations into the local St. Louis Animal Welfare Coalition, bridging the gap between Illinois and Missouri welfare initiatives. She also led the charge to improve conditions and procedures at St. Clair County Animal Services. In 2015, with the help of Jamie and her team, the St. Clair County Animal Abuse Task Force was created. And in 2018, the St. Clair County Animal Welfare Coalition, the first countywide coalition in the state of Illinois, was formed. In 2020, Gateway opened the St. Louis Metro region's largest pet resource center with the goal of providing life-saving services and resources to the community. Sonia Hernandez has worked in Maricopa County, Arizona's animal welfare community with a primary focus on spay and neuter for the last 19 years. She currently serves as the project manager for Fix, Adopt, Save initiative in Maricopa County. Sorry, folks, it's Maricopa County. This is where I wish this was a podcast, and then I know Kristen could fix all these things. Maricopa County, a position she has held since 2015 through programs and services assisting the public, their pets, and shelter pets. Fix, Adopt, Save has decreased euthanasia rates 86% since its launch in 2013. Skilled in community development, Sonia facilitates coalition building between municipalities, shelters, animal, human service nonprofits, and for-profit animal agencies. Sonia's career highlights include expanding and strengthening existing spay-neuter programs and services, advocating for those in need, and establishing programs that assist underserved neighborhoods. In addition to her current role as Fix, Adopt, Save project manager, Sonia's animal welfare experience includes concurrent roles as a contractor with the Maricopa County Animal Care and Control for 15 years and 7 years as the Animal Defense League of Arizona State Spay Neuter Coordinator. She's received a number of awards, including the American Veterinary Medical Association Humane Award in 2019, Humane Society of the United States Arizona Chapter Humane Advocate of the Year in 2018, and the Arizona Small Dog Rescue Arizona Humane Impact Award in 2019. So I'd like to welcome them both, and we have Jamie starting with us today.
Hello, everyone. Can everybody see my screen? Does it look okay?
It looks perfect, and we can hear you perfectly.
Okay, wonderful. It's odd not being able to see yourself. My name is Jamie Case, and I am the Human Animal Support Services Data Coordinator for American Pets Alive. I'm glad that I got a little introduction because my title right now really doesn't reflect my ability to stand here and talk to you about spay neuter. So I want to give you a little bit of history about myself and why I get to talk to all of you guys today. For the 11 years prior to becoming the data coordinator for the Haas project, I was the executive director of Gateway Pet Guardians in East St. Louis. East St. Louis is one city that is a part of about 6 municipalities that we coined Eastside Pet District. Eastside Pet District is right over the river from St. Louis, Missouri. So the Mississippi River divides St. Louis, Missouri and East St. Louis, Illinois. Our work is centralized in the East St. Louis area. I am from Belleville, which is just on the other side of East St. Louis, a little further east. And East St. Louis is a thoroughfare between folks that live in Illinois and folks that live in Missouri to go back and forth to work and home and all of those things. The community itself is highly impoverished. About 43 to 45% of the entire population lives at or below the poverty line. It is approximately 90%, I would say, if you took all of them, African American. There is a Hispanic population as well, and it is a complete resource desert. So until 2020, when the Gateway Pet Guardians opened the resource center, there was no veterinarian, no pet store, really nothing, no resources. Those communities sit within St. Clair County, Illinois, and you heard that mentioned in my bio a bit, but St. Clair County is the governing municipality over all of these cities as far as animal control is concerned. Because of the issues that have happened in the past, they dedicated one animal control officer to about 65,000 residents, which in a community that is in desperate need of help regarding animal welfare is just not enough. One person can't be in that many places at one time. So again, I was the director. We took a very holistic approach to animal welfare in the community, with spay neuter being really the first thing that we launched. So this picture here is really indicative of what the community looked like for many years. I started volunteering with the organization in 2008, and this visual right here was a very common thing that we saw. This is a community, like I said, void of any resources and void of anyone there to help. I often wondered why no one helped, because these main roads that folks traveled every single day to get back and forth from work were just overran by packs of dogs, exactly like this. Spay neuter was just never, it was never in the vocabulary. It was never, folks are struggling to feed themselves, so getting their pets fixed was never a priority for anyone. The woman bending over, which would kill me if she saw that I put this picture on many presentations, her name is PJ, and she dedicated herself for about 20 years to driving every day from St. Louis over to East St. Louis to feed the strays. I knew when I came on that our small organization of like 30 fosters was never going to solve this problem. And so I wanted to get to the root and try to work at the root cause. This pack here, these were known as the church. This was the church pack. This was one litter. The two black dogs are, I think those were the parents, and then the tricolor or the black and tan in the back was another one. The rest of them were all puppies that were born under a church in the community. And again, this was common. This is not abnormal. This was very, very normal for us to see on any given day in the community. PJ would wake up at the first sight of dawn in the morning, drive over, feed them, and then the dogs would kind of go and hunker down for the rest of the day. So we knew we had to do something. In 2008, I started volunteering. 2011, I started to look at data. I am a bit of a data geek, hence my new title. And so data really has driven everything that Gateway Pet Guardians has done over the past 11 years. We started talking to animal control because those dogs that we would see on the streets would end up at animal control, obviously. And we wanted to see how we could transfer them out. But again, we're talking about a large feral population. What looked like neglect and abuse a lot of the times, because there just weren't that many resources. This is the intake versus euthanasia for St. Clair County, the entire county as a whole. The community that Gateway serves, East Side Pet District, has always accounted for 25% of that population that went in. So you can see in 2011, there were almost 10,000 animals that went into animal control, and only about 23% of them were leaving alive. So as we were thinking through strategy, we wanted to make sure that whatever we did really would benefit the animal control as well. As you can see, those numbers declined greatly, and for many reasons. One, the community that we serviced and that we really helped was, again, they were counting for 25%, and if we could help not get those animals in there, there was a better chance that more animals could leave alive from the facility. 2011 was really, and 2012 were two really pivotal years. One, we started transferring and started working to get more transfer partners, which you can see the euthanasia total went down quite a bit. And then you could see a steady decrease as spay neuter efforts from us and spay neuter efforts from the county really took hold, how the numbers just really drastically declined. Also in 2016, the county passed a no-kill resolution, which helped give us a little even further boost down as far as the euthanasia is concerned. Just to give you a little background. So what was our strategy? We knew that spay neuter, because of the conferences at the time, and Pets for Life was a really big driver for us. It was really important that we met the community where they were and helped out as much as possible. And the first thing that we could do was spay neuter. We were a small organization with a $100,000 a year budget, but we were scrappy and we were going to do whatever we could. We pulled a little bit of money together. We had just a high volume spay neuter clinic had just opened in St. Louis, Missouri. But again, our community struggled with resources, so transportation was not something that was easily attained to take your pet to get fixed. So we met community members at the Metrolink station. One guy, it was so wanted. One gentleman, he was probably in his 40s, rode his bike with his little pitty puppy with a pink collar on to bring her to us so that she could get spayed. It was so badly wanted in the community, and we just wanted to continue to do whatever we could. So we would pull together any amount of money, and it was a completely separate budget at the time, to help the community. So that was our first step in our strategy. So you can see, as I was doing a little digging, I found the very first post from our first clinic. October 16th of 2012 was the first spay neuter clinic that we did in the community. What we did then was, it was so badly wanted, but we needed to get to everyone. So we started doing vaccination clinics within the community. We are very thankful to have Purina in the St. Louis area. So they were a big supporter of, they'd provide us small bags of food or treats, leashes, collars, anything that we could just really help provide to the pet owners in the community. And they were just so incredibly grateful to have that resource there. As I mentioned, there's no pet store, there's no veterinarian, but the ability for them just to obtain pet food is very, very hard in the community. Again, you're talking about folks that are walking places or riding their bike, and your grocery stores and your Walgreens and your Dollar Trees, the food is either not quality, or it's not affordable. It's very expensive to buy a small bag of food at Walgreens. And imagine if you have 3 large dogs in your yard, that is not going to feed them for very long. So we knew there was a lot of work that needed to be done on a really holistic level. So vaccination clinics were in 2014. Then we saw this really cool thing happen. The cat population, again, cool. It was interesting to us because the dog population, to give you an idea of how expansive it was, kept the cat population down. In 2015, we started to see that rise in the cat population. So we started TNR efforts right away as soon as we saw it happening. And those efforts still continue to today. And then 2016, we started a community pet food pantry. As community members were talking to us and calling us, because now we were considered a trusted source. We've gotten their pets fixed. We've helped them answer some questions for them. Now they just needed more help. And they were telling us what they needed. So we tried to pivot and offer as many services as we could, because we know that keeping pets and with their families keeps them out of shelters, and keeps the human animal bond together, which is, the most important. So through this time, we formed a lot of partnerships in our local community. And I just want to add that we, unfortunately, the majority of folks that worked for Gateway did not live in the community. And so we had to do a bit of work to build partnerships within the government agencies, within the nonprofit space, to which we did. We would set up at community events. In local parks. We partnered with other shelters and rescues just around the area. Obviously, local veterinarians outside of East St. Louis, because there wasn't one at the time. And we talked to a lot of local elected officials just to get to the table, to start to talk to them about the importance of the work that we're doing and the need in their community. As they're really focused on human needs, animal needs need to be brought to that conversation, and and everybody knows it's there. It's just not talked about. So we really have worked hard to get it to the point where we could talk about it. So a lot of tabling events to help move things forward. As we really grew this program, there was a need for more vehicles. We stopped doing the meeting at the Metrolink station and we started picking up animals because we could, it was a little bit easier for us to go to their homes and pick them up because it was a pretty long day and it was pretty early in the morning. So we wanted to make sure that we could get as many as possible. So reaching out to local car dealerships and things like that really helped us to make those transport efforts a bit easier. So through this time, and then that leads us to 2020, where we got to open this really great resource center, and that is where our sustainability came along. As you can see from the chart, we were really able to decrease the number of animals that were going into animal control, and now we can see that it was so hard for us at the time to gauge our success and to gauge our impact because we couldn't physically go count every animal on the streets. And we could just see little things that were happening. PJ, who was feeding the dogs, she was able to cut down the amount of food that she was using a month down in half. And then it was down even lower. We would see less cases of neglect and what we called quote unquote neglect and abuse, and less feral dogs when we really started working and partnering with the community and talking to them about spay neuter. Spay neuter is always the forefront of the conversation when we're talking to families. We want to provide them with any information that they want, and we want to help in any way that we can. But our goal is to always get those pets spayed and neutered if they want to. I want to talk a little bit about sustainability to wrap up because it is so important. We mirrored the Pets for Life program a bit, and it's a great program, and that really helped push us to where we are today, to where Gateway is today. But we wanted to create something more sustainable. We were there to stay, and we wanted to stay in the community. Spay neuter, it's very interesting, has never decreased. The need has never decreased for us. As much as we have worked in the community for the past 9 years, the need for spay neuter has always remained consistent. So I would say when starting spay neuter programming, really think about how to make sure it's sustainable. It's not just a one-off clinic here and there. It's something that the community will always need because the community is always obtaining pets. We never wanted to break that bond between the owner and the pet, because especially in a community where they're living in such transition and flux, their pet is their constant. So we never want to break that bond, and being able to work with families and starting with spay neuter and keeping them together is really the goal that we had set.
So thank you so very much, Jamie, and good morning and afternoon, everybody out there, for joining us today. I'm going to do things a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and kind of launch into the different aspects and ideas on how to make spay and neuter a priority in your community. And then I'm going to follow up kind of this portion of the presentation with our Fix Adopt Save success that we've had thus far, based on a lot of these efforts that we've put forth in spay and neuter. And then we'll also have a graph that shows the correlation between spay and neuter and then the decrease of intake and euthanasia. So with that, I will go ahead and jump into this. So how to make spay and neuter a priority in your community. Of course, we realize every community is different. Every neighborhood is different within every community, every county, and so on. So from there, you just kind of have to work with everything and adjust as you go. So let's go ahead and move forward here. There we go. Sorry about that. Spay and neuter must remain a priority. As we all know, what's going to happen if spay and neuter kind of takes the back seat to our efforts in what we are doing, our efforts to decrease the number of homeless pets coming into the community, the number of homeless pets coming into the shelters through the rescue groups. If spay and neuter does not remain on the forefront, those numbers are going to escalate or remain at a level that just cannot be maintained, which means there will be more euthanasias in the valley. We do understand, and we are aware that many funders as well are shifting their gears in that spay and neuter is not the priority. So I think it's really important for a lot of us to bring to them our information in our communities, advising them of what we are seeing, both face to face with our own communities, but also the data. So that's always an important part of what we do, is to collect the data from those partners you are working with, the municipalities, the humane societies, the larger shelters, SPCAs, and so on. So just as long as you feel it's a priority, you have to find ways to make that work and for others to see that as well. So now, how do we keep it a priority? For us, and it's always been important in all my years of doing this, from the first time, the first day at work at Maricopa County Animal Control back in 2002, is you realize spay and neuter actually needs to be a community effort. It shouldn't be just your effort, shouldn't be just your mission. Try to make it into a community effort where everybody is involved, because frankly, at the end of the day, pet overpopulation affects everyone. It affects the businesses, it affects restaurants because of complaints we all know about, all the stray cats they say they see in the dumpsters. It affects, the strays on the street, the shelters, and so on, the police departments. So we definitely need to make this a community effort and get everyone to buy into it, that we all have to work together to be able to provide more spay and neuters to the community, therefore making it a happier place for everybody. Okay, so who is your community? Everybody is a part of your community. Everyone should be when it comes to spay and neuter, everything animal welfare related, frankly, but especially on the side of spay and neuter. As Jamie touched on, one thing that we have seen over the years and that we have always done through Fix It Off Save, also our other partners, the Spay and Neuter Hotline, Animal Defense League of Arizona, and a few others, is that we actually do attend many human related events. If they are there receiving assistance for food, for child immunizations, backpacks, things like that, they always have an animal at home as well too. So everyone needs to be a part of your community that you're trying to get the buy-in from about why spay and neuter is important, not just us in animal welfare. So everyone included will be obviously the shelters, the rescue groups. Rescue groups are really a key part of getting the buy-in to keep spay and neuter important, because they are typically the ones that are out in the community taking in the owner surrenders, but also seeing that many of times as they're taking in an animal from one family, there are other pets within that home. Many times those pets also are not fixed. So it's up to us to provide them the resources to at least be able to get those pets at home fixed, so that rescue group isn't called upon a couple months later or a few years later. So we always have to find a way to work with each of these groups out there in the valley. Another part of who is our spay and neuter community, obviously the veterinary community, whether it's the clinics, it's the owners, the veterinarians themselves, and the staff. I can't tell you enough how important that is. We receive many of our requests for assistance from a lot of the veterinary technicians within clinics who are seeing animals for other reasons there, who obviously the client's pet is not spayed or neutered, but they can't afford both services, so we work it out to where we are able to cover the spay and neuter. So you have to have that friendship and relationship with them, so they know as well too, they're helping that person coming in the door. They might have not been there to seek out that spay and neuter, but now that's going to be able to be provided to them. And in turn, that's one less animal we have to worry about bringing more unwanted pets into the shelters or into the community. Also, the general public. Now, the general public, as we know, can be a big scope of people. This will include anybody that is seeking spay and neuter for their own pet. We should always remind those that even have their own pets already spayed or neutered of resources out there. So if they have colleagues, their family members, or even neighbors who are looking for assistance of spay and neuter, they as well can be somebody out there for, on our behalf, speaking about spay and neuter and the importance of it and providing them the resources. So it's really important to get the buy-in of the general public within all the different subject lines of what we need from them and who they are. Another part is obviously the community-based organizations and businesses. This is definitely key. For us, we do a lot of our work with a lot of the governmental agencies. If you hear my cat in the background, I apologize. He's being a little frisky right now. We work with a lot of the cities. We work with a lot of the animal control departments within the cities here in Maricopa County, but we also work with a lot of the organizations that provide assistance to our communities, whether they are for low income, whether it's for different reasons, but we work with many that include some like Chicanos por la Causa. You have to find as well too, the food banks, Department of Economic Services, DES is a great place to be able to provide resources because they are already helping the families that we are trying to assist. Those are the families that we know are not able to afford a spay or neuter, even if it's a low cost spay or neuter. So definitely building those relationships is a huge part of making spay and neuter a success, but also keeping it a priority and keeping it as an important piece of our everyday life. And of course, our funders and our donors, they are definitely part of keeping spay and neuter a priority. If we are able to keep them intrigued, keep them interested in funding spay or neuter, higher dollars is always the best, but at any rate, at any dollar amount is what we really need. Because if we are able to tell one donor or one funder, so-and-so is funding us at X amount of dollars, or this is what we're doing, it piques their interest. So the more donors and funders you're able to get that support you through, your mission and our mission of why spay and neuter needs to stay a priority, that as well will help on that side of keeping that interest going. Okay, so the next one is how can they help make and keep spay and neuter important? Well, some of the things that I just mentioned kind of are in relation to this slide. I apologize. Are in relation to this slide. You have to find a way to speak with them on how will spay and neuter benefit them. Is it going to benefit them directly like our general public? Is it going to benefit them as a rescue or shelter group, meaning less animals are going to be coming into the shelter? Will it benefit them monetary wise as a veterinarian? Will it benefit them as a community organization, meaning that people will be coming in for services on one item, but now they don't need those services for the pets, or their financial hardship isn't going to be focused on the pet, now it can be focused on themselves. So you have to find the way of how it will benefit them and get that buy-in from them, as well as how can they assist to keep spay and neuter important. There will be some organizations you will come across, like I mentioned, like DES, kind of the governmental agencies, where they can help in just communicating and marketing the program for you, hand them flyers, give them easy pieces of literature where they can pass on the information to the community. So they are assisting in a big way, but for them at that moment, it's a quick little action that they are doing. Also, outreach support, and of course, for our donors and our funders or the general public that'd like to donate, financial support. Okay, so where do you start? Obviously, it's knowing your audience. Who are you speaking with? Who are your community members? Once you know who you're going to be speaking to about spay or neuter, you need to be adaptable and communicate with them according to what interests them. It might not be our first choice of what is interesting to them about spay and neuter, but if we're going to get that buy-in from the community, we need to also be very flexible and knowing that we are going to be asking them to assist us in a way that's going to keep them just as interested. And then be prepared. So always be prepared when you're going and speaking with somebody. You need to have either literature that is appropriate to that conversation, have your content ready, and what you're going to focus on in talking to them about. That again will keep their interest, pique their interest, and you'll be able to gain their support. Lastly, as well too, is keep that smile. Not everybody feels the way we do about spay and neuter, and we know this. I've been doing this for 19 years, and it's still, you know, a weekly thing. You have to figure out a way of how am I going to speak to this person for them to understand and support why we are doing what we are doing. But again, it's just up to us to present it in a beneficial manner, frankly, to them, that in turn will benefit us in the mission and what we are doing. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to kind of the history of Fix, Adopt, Save. It is a very complex initiative. So essentially, and I won't read word for word or verbatim, everything will be on here. So Fix, Adopt, Save essentially is an initiative here in Maricopa County. It began in 2012 when we realized we had a coalition. The efforts were there and the desire was there on what do we need to do to bring down the number of animals entering the shelter, and as well as what do we need to do for euthanasia. We were lucky enough that this initiative was funded by two sole primary funders, which was PetSmart Charities at that time and the Nina Mason Pulliam Charitable Trust, who is now our primary funder. So with that, we launched into three main components, which is Fix, the spay and neuter component, Adopt, how do we increase adoptions within the shelter, and Save. That encompassed many different efforts for the Save factor. At this time, through the years, we have made a significant positive impact here in the Valley, but the gears have changed in where over 90% of the funding is now all spay and neuter. Spay and neuter and wellness, including vaccinations and microchipping throughout the year off and on. But spay and neuter is our year-round program because we know that is the one direct action, the one direct effort that provides that permanent solution to that household and that pet, which in turn is what has provided us the decline of 86% in euthanasia. As for the Spay Arizona component, Spay Arizona isn't necessarily a program here. What it is that is through the partnership with Spay USA and United Spay Alliance now, that allows people that easy access to just, you know, kind of click spayaz.org or spayarizona.org. That takes you to the site that provides a statewide resource information. That information is led by the Animal Defense League of Arizona, who actually has been providing statewide referrals for over 20 years now. So with that, let me just jump into the next one. So Fix, Adopt, Save for us, as I mentioned, was to increase access to no-cost spay and neuter, low-cost spay and neuter, and free with preventative wellness care services across Maricopa County. That is now our priority in our primary program. That is as well the program I oversee. My position does oversee the entire initiative. That does include the data as well from all our partners. Our partners do include Humane Society, the Maricopa County Animal Care and Control, AAWL, which is an SPCA out here, a Trap Neuter Return Program, which is the Animal Defense League of Arizona, Altered Tails Barnhart Clinic, which they themselves are responsible for well over 20,000 public spay and neuter surgeries a year, as well as Halo Rescue and PAC 911, which is a coalition of rescue groups. Okay, so I won't dive into this one. Once you receive the presentation in about 2 weeks or so, you guys can feel free to dive into these numbers. These are actually can be found on our website as well, but this is a perfect example of the importance of spay and neuter. When you look at the spay and neuter graph, you will see the correlation between the number of spay and neuters we did. Obviously, our peak was in 2014 and 2015 with the decline of intake, therefore the decline of euthanasia. Adoptions obviously isn't directly related to these, but I wanted to leave all the components on there for everyone to see. As funding dwindled down for spay and neuter, that is the drop in the numbers as you see, but they have spiked back up in 2019. We do know with COVID, many clinics did close. We were lucky enough here in Maricopa County that our veterinarians, majority of them considered it an essential business and an essential service. So we were lucky enough to stay open all year last year. There was only one time that all the clinics did shut down, and that was in April. So last year we were lucky enough to keep the flow moving. As you will see through our partners alone, these numbers do not include private, non-Fix Adopt Save contracted partners, but just through Fix Adopt Save, our mobile unit partners, we still were able to spay and neuter over 30,000 animals in 2020. The breakdown, as you will see, is over 10,000 were owned canines, a little over 7,400 were owned felines, over 12,000 cats were TNR'd, which include the community cats, the feral cats, outdoor free roaming, and so on. Because here, especially in Maricopa County, frankly, we refuse to go back to where we were years ago. Out here, it is crucial that we keep spay and neuter going and that we keep it moving, because 1 month with no spay and neuter for us ended up being a total of over 3,000 surgeries that aren't being done. So as you can tell, we kept the efforts moving and going forward. So with that, I know my time is almost up. If you have any questions, be happy to answer those now and later. But the big takeaway I just have on how to make spay and neuter important is collaboration is key. I cannot stress that enough. Fix Adopt Save not only is a perfect example of that, but the efforts that we put out there when I'm talking to the communities, the mobile units we have, the buy-in from the veterinarians through our year-round voucher program as well too. All of these things cannot be done with one organization. You have to bring in other partners. You have to bring in other members of the community. You have to get those neighborhood leaders. You have to bring everyone together in order for spay and neuter to stay a priority, for spay and neuter to stay on the forefront. And through the ups and downs of all these years, you know, not just with COVID, but prior to that, with funding being, decreasing, and, many other even organizations shifting their mission, just stay true to what you do and what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, not only do the animals need us, but the people need us. We can't get to the animals if we can't get the buy-in from their owners and the people. So there you go. That is my presentation. I thank you all so much for your time. And Stacy, I will hand it back to you. Thank you.
So folks have questions, feel free to put them in there. One question that I had was for Sonia. So you're talking about that sort of 30,000 number. That's like your must-have figure. Is that what you're thinking as your baseline for that like maintenance mode?
Yes, because we're actually in maintenance mode at this time. We came to that conclusion in 2019 after looking at all of our data. And if you look at the bigger spreadsheet, you'll be able to definitely see where we start tapering out. So actually 30,000 isn't the must-have. It's actually more at about 36 to 39,000. But with COVID, we did have one clinic that just did permanently stay closed, and losing that 1 month where, most of them did have to close did make an impact. So we are definitely going to start seeing an uptick, and we already have seen that uptick of animals that technically would have already been fixed, not being fixed. So this year, definitely we're going to be able to see what's coming, but 35, I'll just be, realistically, 36 to 39 is what we are looking at to be our maintenance number.
And I was looking at the population of Maricopa County. It's like 4.4 million, right?
Million. Yes, okay. Yes. It is a big county.
Yeah. So, I'm just trying to do so I'm hoping that everybody who's attending the conference this week will walk away with like a big idea or a takeaway of like, okay, this is a project that I'm going to work on. And I think in my dream world, and I've done some of this on the back of the napkin or back of the envelope type calculations. And I've done it with some of the groups that I've mentored with, which is creating a CAC calculator, and something where we can put in different components, different demographic components, as well as population components. Because if you're looking at a community with poverty levels of 50% versus a community with poverty levels of 8%, you need to take that information into account while you're doing this sort of CAC calculation. to find out what your spay neuter capacity is needed to really make those differences, because, you know, one basket of tricks isn't going to work in another community from one community to the other. So, but if we can do sort of like a factoring and a weighting system that might be able to help us say, okay, so this is our goal. Our goal is 50K a year or 30K. And how do we get the collaborative groups together to reach that goal? That helps give us a target and a focus. And then, yeah, so maybe we hit that 50K and, or you're really reaching 30K and you're going, you know what, I'm not feeling it. And you tweak it. But then you go back to that calculator and you say, okay, you know, the calculation needs to be modified a little bit. So that's sort of like my big idea that I'm sort of taking away from the conference. And as attendees are out there, if you have a big idea, just go my big idea and put that in the question section. And I'd love to share it with the group, because I really hope that, you know, turn your passion for cats into action, which is you take something and you move with it and you take it. And that's what we're all here for, is learning from each one of us and then being able to take some of these ideas and implement them in your own communities. So there's my soapbox there.
And if I could add kind of to like what you were saying about programs, I know ours, you know, really does sound like it's a big program. We do have a lot of players, but what I can say is it always wasn't that big. And a lot of what we do isn't, the collaboration is a whole for Fix, Adopt, Save, but the spay neuter component is actually a smaller amount of people that are doing it. So don't be scared off if anybody is listening to this, anybody's ideas, it can be done. Frankly, a lot of times it's just me and one other person who is really doing all of this and driving it. So you can do this work. You don't need to start at 30,000. Start in your neighborhood, wherever you are isolated, wherever you're going from, and go from there. Because even the work that we do, it might be 30,000 across the valley between all the partners. But let's say like my component, especially with the 85 mobiles, the voucher program, it's a little bit over 5,200 a year, but we're going from neighborhood to neighborhood. You're going through, you know, different communities. So again, don't get scared off. Don't think you can't do it because you don't have, you know, a $500,000 budget or $1 million spay neuter budget. You can start with even $50,000. You can start with even a $5,000 mobile, because you can even get that buy-in from that donor. You get that donor to say, hey, sponsor one clinic. Let's see what that does for this community. And then that can become 2 clinics and more and more. So this is something I kind of did with another group in a different state that I consulted with. And that's how it started with them. And now they have a year-round mobile. So it's just little baby steps, always baby steps.
I think our first clinic was like $2,000. And again, we're in a very small community, but it was not a lot at all. And the other thing that I want to throw in here too is partnerships. This donors, especially larger donors, are looking to collaborations to fund versus single initiatives. So if you are a smaller organization and want to do something like this, talk to your rescue shelter partners in the community. In 2018, I think it was, there were 4 organizations within the St. Louis area that pulled together a grant ask to PetSmart charities. That's the only reason we got that, because we hit different areas of the community based on our service area. So collaboration is really key when trying to get money to fund these as well.
How do you reach out to non-English speaking communities?
So do you want to jump in on that one, Jamie?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, for me, it's a little bit easier, especially if we're talking about the Hispanic community, because I speak Spanish as well, too. But that's not to say that I haven't trained or assisted others. So what I would say the key is if you are in an area where, frankly, nobody in animal welfare really speaks Spanish, and a perfect setting for that is like here in Maricopa County. It is a huge Spanish-speaking community. We have a lot of, you know, Hispanics, Mexicans that work here, but actually that speak Spanish in animal welfare, there's like 5 of us. So even, you know, that doesn't really make a difference. So what you have to do is just meet up with somebody, talk to someone, get that basic literature that you need, and then have that available. Now, and connect and collaborate with somebody that can help them. So like with us, I know if they just speak Spanish, no English, nobody else can assist them, I know I'm going to send them to like 3 or 4 clinics because they have Spanish speaking staff. But in general, when putting out literature, keep it simple, keep it basic, and just have that two-sided. So for us, all our forms are Spanish and English. Even for the veterinary community and the mobile units that we do put out in predominantly Hispanic neighborhoods, I've assisted in helping them provide the discharge information in Spanish. So even though they can't truly communicate with that person, you can point, you can say stuff, you know, they will pick up enough, but to have that literature makes a big difference. And then they'll put in that effort as well too. So I know for some, they actually do get scared off by that, like, oh, we can't do that, they speak Spanish. It's like, no, they understand enough, or you just show that effort, and it'll end up going both ways. But I mean, that information's out there. I can always assist and provide a template or two for the basic stuff, like just spay neuter information, call this number, and then have that link or that phone number provide info in Spanish, and just find that one volunteer or that person that can assist you.
So a couple things for us, we have, there was a police officer that we partnered with in the community. He was doing some TNR on his own, and kind of, we just came across paths. And so he has really been our link to we have one primarily Hispanic community within our service area. And he's really been a great link for us. And when we're out doing TNR or things like that, children always tend to help us as well, when speaking to the parents. And then in addition, I'll share one thing that I heard on a conference call this past week was Dallas Animal Services is doing Spanish Saturdays. And so all their social media for one day of the week is all in Spanish, which I thought was really cool, to really reach out and bring those folks in with the conversation. So I think any way we can reach out is absolutely necessary at this point.
If I could throw in one more, another one that works really good for a lot of my colleagues, if I can't go with them, is when they attend the block watches, the block watch meetings and neighborhood meetings with the police departments. Those typically tend to have a bilingual either police officer or frankly the neighborhood block watch leader is, so they can team up as well too when giving the presentation if needed. So that also is a big plus as well too. On our website, we do have a tab that is Spanish, so we put everything on there. And for a few other organizations I've worked with, they frankly have the same thing, and they clearly put on there like, no, you know, no one speaks Spanish, but here is information to other links and to other resources, and that has helped as well too.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice on working with town councils to help engage with spay neuter efforts that might not necessarily be particularly supportive with regards to TNR?
You can go, Jamie.
Yeah, we went, the county as a whole adopted a community cat ordinance, and then we went municipality by municipality. It really is about relationship building and finding those 1 or 2 people that will go to bat for you and talk to them about why. You know, they hear from constituents about why not, but we need to find the constituents also, and bring them full force to talk about why it's important and to really bust any of those myths. And again, we went municipality by municipality and got those passed just by bringing numbers with us and educating the politicians.
So yep, so for us, it's kind of the same thing, working with some of the data within their area. So we're lucky enough, we actually work and they provide us a location to put our spay neuter mobiles and host events at multiple cities here in the Valley. So like City of Avondale, City of Peoria, and we actually work really closely with City of Tempe as they now have their own TNR program in the city, which is fantastic. And it's the first one in this whole state and in many others where the city themselves have, you know, this whole program that is actually funded as well too through donations. But with that, it was providing them the statistics and showing them, you know, this is what we're doing. It's not costing you anything because it's part of our program, but they were able to then at that point, you know, again, buy into what we were doing and at least be able to promote spay and neuter as well too. Obviously, there's always going to be somebody within any organization, any business, any, you know, city office that can't publicly support you, but as long as they support us, even in the background, we are fine with that because we know they are telling people about spay neuter, the importance of it, providing us support as well too, approvals for permits so we can be on site. So all of those things, but yes, it's just going and talking to them again, knowing who you're going to talk to. It depends in your area who you should speak with. We have found here that if we actually start with more of the on the ground officers, whether it's the animal control officers or just the regular police officers, the community specialists for that city, they are the ones that are able to bring the importance up the ladder versus starting at the top, because usually at the top they're like, no, we don't care, we don't want to do this. But going from the bottom up has really worked well for us.
That's great. And a shout out to Carrie, who's already shared her big idea, which is she lives in a high population area of Amish, and her big idea is to build a relationship with their community and start a TNR program with them.
Yes.
So
yes. That's fantastic. Yes. God, just take those baby steps and just little by little. So good luck with that.
Do you have a sample of municipality language for community cats?
I do not.
I'm sure I can dig one up. Absolutely.
Okay. Great. So that's a question from Lori. Lori, if you want to email me at stacy@communitycatspodcast.com, I'll get you in touch with Jamie, and we'll get that information together. So that's great. All right. So we have a few minutes before we do lunch break. Thank you so much, ladies. Appreciate it very, very much. Great presentation. Excellent information.